Did you get, Lauren, are you saying, did you get any information from Sam? Is he going to come late?
He sent an email yesterday, but I didn't get any information that he would be joining late.
Okie doke. Well, we'll just proceed forward with the opening. Hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for all your work on this committee so far. We're coming into the home stretch, and we've got a good bunch of things to go over today. So I'm encouraged that you all are here, or most everybody's here. So basically, it's just, I think we should go ahead and call this meeting to order because we need to use every minute that we have. And basically what we really want to dive into today is, you know, that the district in question. Do we add more city council people? Do we take you know, what we need to discuss. So Lauren wanted to start out, I believe, with just kind of talking about the committee charges. We know our central questions. We've been emailing those back and forth. And then the updated policy guidelines and principles, which we need to discuss for city council redistricting for the results of the 220 census that I think today was the last day to get the census in. And then once we get through all that and hopefully straw vote on what our decision is, then I'd like to review our votes that we've made and get that ready for a presentation to council. So without further ado, Lauren, do you want to go over the PowerPoint?
District criteria. So we had put on the agenda just to talk about the district criteria suggestions. The charge, as listed on the slide, is updated policy guidelines and principles for city council redistricting resulting from the results of the 2020 U.S. Census. And then the questions to consider are, given Charlotte's increased population since 2010, is the current 11-member council sufficient to adequately serve our citizens? Again, that's 7 district representatives and 4 at-large members elected by citywide vote. And what changes, if any, should be made to the size of Charlotte City Council? And then again, should we increase the district seats, increase the at-large members? And there are a number of ways you guys could go about that. And then you had asked previously for the factors that may be considered in redistricting. The below factors were considered in 2000 and 2010. Some of those factors included having a substantially equal population among the districts. Typically, I think ideally there would only be a 5% differential, but up to 10% is allowable. Another factor was reasonably compact districts. A third factor was following neighborhood boundaries. An additional factor was taking into consideration political concerns. Another factor was following precinct boundaries. In the memo from 2009 from then city attorney, it did indicate that potentially following neighborhood boundaries and precinct boundaries could come in conflict with one another. Another factor to consider is race of district residents, and then making districts most likely to be impacted by future annexations potentially smaller to minimize the effect of future annexations on future redistricting. And then lastly, avoiding contests between incumbents. So the committee, or if anyone would like to add to this conversation.
I think you had you commented on email about this. What are you, please chime in.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Amy. Thanks. I think all of these factors make perfect sense, and we should. My thought is we should stick with them again in 2020. But what I was wondering is, with all the changes our city has gone through in the past decade, are these factors still logistically possible? Can we still do the equal populations with the district, keep them compact, the boundaries that we identified? And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that there was a previous criteria as well where we tried to keep it politically balanced. So there would be an equal number of Republicans and Democratic leaning districts. So please tell me if I'm wrong about that equal distribution of parties, and also, well, that plus the other criteria. Is it still possible to do this in 2020?
So this is Patrick. I think some of that's going to depend on what the numbers actually come out once we get the census data. But by putting these up here as factors, that's something that ultimately, you know, when council goes through this process, and they may end up with another committee to assist them in that regard as well. But by putting them up as factors, you have the ability then to see what the numbers look like, and then, you know, some factors may take a higher precedent over other factors. But putting them all out there, and I don't know that there's a much broader universe of factors to consider that were considered in 2000 and 2010. So I don't know, there's something out there that's going to be a big need for the city of Charlotte that hasn't been considered in 2000 or 2010. Again, the universe of factors are pretty finite. And I assumed that political concerns sort of covered the idea of having some level of balance to the extent that you can create that balance within all these other factors of having balance or at least some guaranteeing that there's some representation or the opportunity for representation of other parties just under that umbrella of political concerns there.
Pete, I think you're muted.
I'm sorry. Thanks, Amy. As always, you're smarter than I am. I just want to make sure that the factors here make perfect sense. But in addition, besides the ones here, we could also include a factor about equal representation so it doesn't lean one way or the other politically.
Yes, you could put that up there as a factor, whether that's covered under political concerns, because that's not really fleshed out. Yeah. But when you were saying that, it sort of dawned on me that political concerns may cover the whole gamut, but you could flesh it out further if you'd like.
Okay. Thanks, Patrick.
Yep.
Patrick, just to clarify for the committee, we're going to make a recommendation to council on the makeup of the board, considering the growth of Charlotte and the citizens' needs and the city council person's needs. But we will not be slicing and dicing the districts.
That's correct.
Any other questions on this? Not, Lauren, you want to continue?
Yeah, I don't know if you all agree with continuing with the factors that are discussed here. I don't know if you want to take a straw vote on those, or if you want to sort of flush any of them out, detail anything else.
I think this is a pretty comprehensive, thorough list. The only thing that I would recommend is that we flesh out political concerns just to make sure it's clear too that we're talking about equal representation from both parties. I believe I saw that in a previous redistricting conversation in 2000 or 2010, and it would be great to have that again in 2020.
There's something that's been haunting me about all of this. When we talk about the increase in population in Charlotte, and I was looking through the number of people that other cities were representing, and there must be some point or some line where the districts just become too large to be represented in an effective way, where the relationships between the people in the district and the district representative kind of ebbs. And so you don't have that personal communication that you did before. And there's simply too many different facets to represent that whole district. And I can't seem to really think of where that line is that you probably shouldn't go above. Has anyone ever thought at all about that?
Well, thank you, Mimi. I feel, and I think Cindy would agree, I've been talking with her a little bit, and I think all of us agree that it would be good to have smaller districts so that they may be better served. And how we do that and rebalance them and along with the makeup of the council is going to matter. But yeah, there's only at a certain point, a district becomes too big and districts become too big. So then we have to rebalance them. So I think smaller districts are ideal. So that's my 2 cents. Anybody else?
Mimi, I completely agree with you. When we looked at the numbers to see that there are more people living in the districts represented by Charlotte City Council members than there are people living in the districts represented by the State House of Representatives, I couldn't believe there was that much of a difference. So I absolutely agree. There should be more district representation and create at least one other district. So it'd be 8 districts. It'd be the 4 at-large positions that exist now, and it'd be the mayor.
I'd absolutely agree.
I believe, I totally agree with that, but I believe probably 8 or 9 districts, considering the way some of the districts are growing, especially 1 and 2, and then 6 and 7. And so if we have to cut 1 at large, it will be better to add an extra district representative.
I agree. I think if we're really looking for the future and looking at the amount of growth that we have in Charlotte, that I think adding 1 is putting a Band-Aid on a hemorrhage. And I think maybe looking at adding 2 to 3, that even if it makes the districts a little bit small in the near term, I think that'll set us up for success in a longer term.
Are you talking then about having fewer at-large reps and moving those positions to districts?
I much rather have 2 or 3 at large and have more district representatives. Yes, the way the city is growing, we should do that. Or we should recommend that.
Is there a rule as to how many council representatives we can have altogether, or like, is there a maximum number, I guess is the question?
There is 12 maximum plus the mayor. So you're talking about no larger than a 13-person board.
Okay. So
Patrick, there's no way to increase that. Is that what the statute allow us, or do they have to go to Raleigh to get that increase?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the state of the law, and obviously, putting it on a legislative agenda to get more is always a possibility.
I do have a question since we're talking about factors for redistricting. I'm looking at one of the points is specific on race of district residents. I'm not sure Lauren or Patrick, if either of you can answer this for me. But, I guess I'm trying to understand why is that a factor? Because as I'm thinking of it, I'm thinking redlining. I'm thinking, other things, other measures that structurally that have been put in place to kind of separate out certain groups of people, certain races in certain areas and populations and pockets. So I guess for me, if either you can answer why is race of the district residents a factor when you're redistricting?
My guess is that you'll want to look as you're doing the district changes to make sure that you're not in the process of completing some of these other factors, that you're not creating a heavily unbalanced district inadvertently. So I can see where you'd want to at least understand where the racial component is, as opposed to setting aside a district that's intentionally designed to be all one race or a majority one race. And then breaking up other districts. I mean, there are ways, as you know, to gerrymander this city and such to where you can X out a portion of the population. You get into that issue of one person, one vote, and whether or not there's racial gerrymandering going on. So I didn't take it as make sure don't forget to racially gerrymander the city. What I thought and what I read was make sure that in the process of doing all these other things that you don't unintentionally racially gerrymander the city. That's how I've looked at that. That's probably as a lawyer, because I certainly wouldn't be recommending that you go create a black district here or a white district there. But I think that as you're flipping these precincts and creating your new districts to get that balance of population, just keep in mind that you're not inadvertently creating an inequity in the process of trying to make things equal. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, and for me, that's exactly where my mind went when I read it. Is the gerrymandering piece of it, because we know that happened a lot in our state. They're trying to, balance, or not necessarily balance, but trying to give one party the advantage over the other. So that's where my mind went. But yeah, what you said made sense. Thank you.
And if we're looking at the 2000 factors to consider, the political one was district boundaries may be drawn to create, maintain balance between major political parties. So if that's something you all wanted to replace with political concerns, we could put that in the list of the factors that may be considered in redistricting. And as far as the race item, it says district boundaries may be drawn considering the race of district residents, so as long as race is not the predominant motivating factor.
Lauren, thanks for that. I would move that the political concerns factor be spelled out more clearly the way you just read it from 2000.
I agree. Does anybody else have any other comments about this or suggestions?
And you can also rank the importance of the factors. You could have a first tier of important factors and then a second tier if you prefer to do that.
So that I'm clear, so with our charge, we're going to be recommending not only how we may want the districts to be, I guess, set up more or less at large or districts, but also the factors that should be considered. This list we will also be voting on and recommending. This list enforces these factors that should be considered. Is that what we as a body need to vote on too, these factors?
Yes. So you're looking at district criteria and then also the makeup of the body. And Patrick can add to that.
That is the essence of what you've been asked to do. That's correct.
In the past, so I'm looking at the factors from this 2000. This was approved March 15th, 2001. So it says this document says factors that may be considered in redistricting. So will our vote be also these factors may be considered, and then whoever's going to be drawing this up, I guess that's a body or an organization that's going to do this, will they then, I guess, have the freedom to choose whether or not they're going to consider these? Because they say may be considered.
Yeah, ultimately, you're making a recommendation of these factors. So it's not a mandate that these are the only factors that will be considered. Obviously, by putting this group together, I would expect that your recommendations will be given great weight, given the work that you have done over the spring and summer. But it's not, a mandatory. This is how it's going to be. It is truly an advisory opinion that you're going to be providing, similar to what was done back in 2000 and 2010, where ultimately the decision makers could have been guided by those factors, but they weren't necessarily bound by the factors, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, it does, Patrick, and thank you. And that brings me to my second question. If we know the answer to this, do we know what factors were taken into consideration, were used by the whichever body drew the districts the last time? Do we know what if these factors from 2001 was actually used and kind of the result, or did they redraw the districts?
Yeah. I know in 2000 and 2010 they had to make some changes. If for no other reason, what every community is going to have, well, I shouldn't say every community. There may be a community that grows perfectly evenly around these districts, but generally speaking, you're going to have some hot spots in a particular district or two that are going to grow at a much faster rate than some of the other communities or the other districts that are in your community as well. So as you're ticking off these precincts to create that balance, you may find that one precinct flipping over to another district was just because of the numbers, just trying to make the numbers work. Another district may be because a neighborhood grew in a certain direction, and you're trying to create neighborhoods and keep those neighborhoods together to the extent that you can. So it's really hard, I think, to pinpoint exactly what, because there are going to be multiple decisions. There may be a dozen decisions in terms of making the balance of the district's work that may impact a number of these factors as they go. So much of it just depends on where the growth is and where those numbers are and how out of balance one district may be over another in terms of how they try to create that balance to the extent they can.
Thank you. And what does it mean reasonably? What does compact districts mean? It almost seems like when it talks about substantially equal population among districts, then it says reasonably compact districts. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think this is going to be based on my experience. You're looking at kind of the shape of the district. So if you've got a district that's kind of shaped a little curvy or something, or extends much further out, or isn't as what's the word that I'm looking for? I just keep going back to the shape of the district and not having some triangles or some squares here, and then this bizarre rectangle that curves around, and there's very little. You start out at the uptown and you end up way out in Ballantyne to create some issues, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, that does. Thank you. And one last question. So down where it says making the districts most likely to be impacted by future annexations smaller, do we have kind of a magic ball or something to know where future annexations may be? I'm sure that's a little real touchy.
So I think the planning department keeps track of where the growth is coming and where it's likely to go. Obviously, as a municipality, we need to be prepared to provide the municipal services necessary for where the growth's going to be. You don't want to find out in 4 to 5 years that, oh my God, all the growth's going to be in this particular area, and we haven't upfitted our water and sewer structure to meet that growth. So now to be clear, There is a little bit of crystal ball in that as well, because you're kind of guessing certain things that are going to continue on with the economy and where people seem to be, like around light rail. I think you can kind of anticipate there may be continued growth on the light rail areas that haven't blown up already, that may be the next area of growth over the next 10 years. And keep in mind that for the most part, you're really only getting, one shot at this every 10 years when the census comes. So there is a little bit of crystal ball. We think the growth is going in that direction. So maybe, making it equal today, exactly equal or a little bit ahead today may push that district, way out of whack in 5 or 6 years when or think that there's going to be some growth going in that area.
Yeah. And is there any more areas to be annexed? I mean, Charlotte's pretty much grown.
So yeah, I noticed the word annexation, and for the most part, lawyers and planners don't even think about annexation anymore. I can tell you that in 2000 and 2010, annexation was, a real thing. But in around, 2012, 2013, essentially municipal governments were deprived of the ability to involuntarily annex. Okay. So now your annexations really are coming around future, voluntary annexations where you've got a neighborhood or a industrial facility that needs access to municipal services. They can't provide the water and sewer on their own, so they're asking for. That's how municipalities grow now. Whereas before, certainly in 2000 and 2010, the ability to grow also included, a conscious decision by the local government that we want to grow in that direction, so we're going to go grab that land and make it a part of the city, which we don't have the power to do that anymore. So that's a little bit of a relic, but I think it's still I think it's still worthwhile, particularly as you see some of these warehouse Amazon type industries popping up around the airport. That are out in the county right now that may want to be a part of the city. And it wouldn't be surprising if you see some neighborhood development around what is clearly a jobs engine out there. You may see some growth out there. And I don't want to step out of my lane because I'm not a planner, but I just know that those are the types of things that you think about, because where the industry is growing and asking for voluntary annexations, it's not surprising to see neighborhood growth around those areas as well to serve those industrial annexations that are happening.
Okay, thank you.
And yeah, just to add to that, Patrick, just my little tiny bit, I actually live over here by the airport, and there's a lot of development happening literally across the street on Morris Chapel. That's all county and not city. But I don't see why that wouldn't be city, once the comprehensive plan is done and the census happened. And so to your point, all of this area is growing. Right now, it looks country, but the amount of development that's planned and that's happening now is that has the highest number of population, within city council. So just want to just emphasize that point about that.
Yeah, so you're living it out there, and obviously, if you're going to be making these district changes in 2020, with the knowledge that in 2023, 2024, you may see some explosive growth there. To the extent that you may want to take that into account, where it may seem like adding to that district to make it equal is a good thing in 2020. By 2024, 2025, assuming the growth continues the way that you expect, you may have a district that is way out of balance. So that's what they mean by sort of taking those future annexations into account.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Patrick, how often can you do redistricting?
So it happens with every census, which is every 10 years. And that's why you see these things coming up in 2000 and 2010 when the last time that we did that. And obviously the city attorney in 2030 will be looking at what we did in 2020 to make recommendations to that group.
So it's not too late for us to be able to do the recommendation and to be executed?
Yes, that's what you.
2020?
Yeah, that's part of your charge as we get ready for receiving the results of this current census. That's what council's going to be doing in the spring of 2021. Is making those changes to the districts, and I'm assuming that you're going to come back with districts that have not grown equally and need to be reshaped to get that balance. And that's what you're doing right now is creating those factors as this group did back in 2000 and 2010.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Great questions and answers. Lauren, can you bring up that other slide just to show the tiers of decision-making or suggestions?
Yeah, it's in the packet. It's not on the slide, but we also have.
I'm sorry. Okay, well then, just for talking points, what Lauren said, if we want to decide how we want to rank these as a committee, how does this criteria look, and what's most important to us all? Does it stay that it should be equal, population if we rebalance, our number one priority?
Hey, Amy, just to help, it starts on page 16 of the packet if everyone has access to that.
And the three most important are districts must have substantially equal population. Districts should be reasonably compact. And like Patrick was saying, that's just saying that places within the district should be connected to one another. And then third, district boundaries may follow neighborhood boundaries or the boundaries of areas contain residents sharing similar interests.
Lauren, if you don't mind, you have a shared screen, right? Do you mind switching? Or I don't know if that was your screen. Just to literally keep us all on the same page.
Let's do this.
And forgive me, I'm sorry. I thought you were sharing your screen previously. I don't know who that was. I wasn't trying to make more work for you.
No, it's okay. I can share my screen. I just have, here we go. Do you guys see it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So this was done in 2001, and these were also fairly similar to the ones that were considered in 2009 and 10.
I have a question, this is Janice again. I have a question about it. So in terms of the political parties, it says district boundaries may be drawn to create and maintain balance between major political parties. What exactly does that mean? Because we know right now on the city council, just because of Charlotte has a huge number of Democratic members on city council. So what exactly does it mean to maintain balance between the major political parties?
Ideally, I think if you have 7 districts, you would want to present opportunities through your drawing of districts that 3 would have the ability to be Republican, 3 would be Democratic, and then 1 would be a toss-up district.
So would that mean that that the boundaries would, well, I hear your language there, Lauren, that opportunities, there would be opportunities to try to present that as opposed to
like competitive. They should be competitive. They shouldn't have like 85, 90% of people registered to vote as Democratic for all 7 districts.
In other words, we wouldn't do it the way the U.S. Congress is drawn up.
I'm sorry, Peter?
I was saying, Janice, in other words, we wouldn't do it the way the U.S. Congress congressional districts are drawn.
We shouldn't do anything with them.
we'd keep it compact, and we wouldn't break up neighborhoods, and we would keep it so they're all competitive.
If I can also add one thing, Janice, to what you were talking about, this will also tie to your recommended straw vote of partisan versus nonpartisan. So that's how people have the ability to vote on council members will tie into this equal district framework. So that's just something to think about as we start to tie in everything we're recommending.
Thank you. Thank you. Who was that? What's that? Was that
Lauren from budget.
Oh, okay.
Lauren, that's a great point. Lauren from budget. Can you give an example of how that would work for the committee?
Right. So right now, we have the ability to say or recommend whether we would allow people who are registered Republicans to only vote for the Republican in their district, or we can recommend that people could vote if they're not registered for Democrat or the Republican. So we wouldn't be limiting people by political affiliation.
Oh, she's speaking about, so I'm sorry, what's her name again? Let me write this down.
Lauren.
Her name is Lauren too?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Lauren basically is speaking about the nonpartisan as far as makeup of the council that we voted on a while back. Is that right, Lauren, from budget?
That's correct.
Yeah, and so we're going to be discussing that. I think we're going to be talking about that some more too, I think, before we make our final votes. Aren't we?
Yes. Okay, so looking at this document ahead of us, or in front of us, does the committee, do we agree that this looks good? Is there anything we want to add or we think is missing or not clear? Are the political boundaries not outlined? Pete, is this where you see it may need to be outlined a little bit?
You know, I'm kind of thinking, I think I'm just having trouble with the language in the statement, in the sentence. You know, so it says district boundaries may be drawn to create and maintain balance between major political parties. I wonder if that can be reworded to say district boundaries may be drawn to create opportunities for, creating and maintaining balance between major political parties. It's almost like that to me, that I would almost get the impression then that means that right now with the way the council is make up, and I'm all about, everybody having an opportunity to be represented. But it almost sounds like then that would be an intentional trying to, almost like it becomes a criteria where you cannot have similar makeup of the council the way it is now. I like the language of as far as creating opportunities, but that creating and maintaining balance, that.
And Janice, just to your point, in the packet, there was so this is more on the legislature and state congressional level, but they provided sort of examples of criteria that could be used. Mm-hmm. And you can see a different sample of the language under this last bullet where it says competitiveness.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So districts should have a relatively even partisan balance, making competition between the two major parties.
More
so, yeah.
Language. I like that. I personally like that language a lot better than what's in this statement here. And I'll be interested to see what Patrick, since that was a point that he was brought up, how he feels about that language versus the language that's on the. And I guess we weren't planning to use this exact language on this old document, were we?
Yeah, that would be up to the committee, okay. You guys.
Okay. Then I propose, and I would love to hear the rest of the committee's opinion too, The language that's down here, that's on the screen, Lauren, districts having relatively even partisan balance, making competition between the two major parties more intense versus what's on the 2001 document in the packet. But I'm curious to hear what other people think about it.
Would anybody like to add their thoughts on that? Using this language over the language, previous language?
Lauren, could you pull up the previous language again, please?
Yeah. So right here.
And now, Lauren, I'm sorry, do you mind going back to the other one? Sam, I don't mean to, forgive me if I'm making that request too soon.
You can highlight that, Lauren, if you can, that first sentence.
That person.
Yeah, it won't let me. It's
So-
like a big cursor.
It looked like you were trying to highlight. Well, that sentence, after competitiveness, everybody.
I like this language now that's on the screen just because it's easier psychologically when I'm reading it. It makes more sense in my head reading it the way it is on the screen. And also people understand partisan is and balance isn't. So me personally, I will vote that we change the language to have this specific sentence there because it's just an easier read and I can connect with what, what is being recommended quicker than on the last, on the previous one that was there before.
Okay. So right now we have the same as what's on the screen right now, and I can replace the first bullet under the second order with what was on the screen.
Amy, do we need to vote on that? To make
Well,
that?
I think that we should maybe get a second on that.
I'll second it.
Can we read what we're going to replace it with so everybody is sure we're doing what we think we're doing?
So we need to go. So
here's what we can do. I can type it out in a Word document. This is where virtual meetings become fun. And I can let you guys review it. So when you're talking about something, I'll be typing this information up. I can let you guys review it and you can change anything and vote on it if you like that idea.
That's good to me.
Okay. Okay.
So if I understand correctly, the difference is, and tell me if I'm not mistaken, the difference is that under the Word document that's up on the screen, the PDF that's up on the screen now, the idea is there would be an even number, for the most part, of districts that lean Republican versus districts that lean Democrat. Is that right? And then the other version is saying that districts would be drawn so that each district is competitive between Republican and Democrat. Am I understanding that correctly?
Let me add to this. These are going to be factors that can be considered. So, for instance, in a city of 900,000, I just don't know what the numbers are going to be, but I don't know that it's going to be, you're going to see the numbers to where you can have competitive in the sense of equal number or close to equal numbers of Republicans and Democrats in each district. I think you're going to have some districts that are just considerably different, unless it was, everybody was spread out equally and there were about 450,000 Republicans and 450,000 Democrats, which I don't think is going to be the case. So I think as you've gone on, they've kept some of this language as sort of, when you have the opportunity to create balance. But my guess is, as is the case in a number of larger urban areas, you were seeing those pockets of blue, particularly in the South, surrounded by a sea of red, as is the case in North Carolina. So I understand why everybody wants to have a lot of conversation about this, but there's only going to be so much that you can do when you factor in all these other factors of, the precincts are going to need to be contiguous. Otherwise, you're talking about, grabbing some precincts maybe in the south and some in the extreme north, and that's precinct number one, which you can't have. So when you start talking about the compact nature of the districts, I mean, there are going to be a lot of factors in place where there only may be a couple of districts that you can create that kind of balance, if you will. And I don't know enough about the specifics of Charlotte, but my guess is the idea of truly having an equal number of districts that are competitive, or Republican versus Democrat, probably isn't feasible within the city limits of Charlotte. So you're really just talking about doing the best that you can and having that as a factor, and in particular making sure that you're not crossing out, as you see at the national level, those congressional districts where it's clear that you're splitting up a minority community to water down the minority representation or what have you.
Thank you, Patrick, for that, because I almost feel like we're getting almost too involved in the process that we're really not going to be participating in, so that's helpful.
Right. I think if we stand back and look at what we've seen as far as the growth of Charlotte and where the outliers are, I think it's certainly important that we have the districts are more equally balanced if possible, and especially if District 3 is going to be growing exponentially. We need to keep that in mind, and that they should be reasonably compact. Again, with the idea of our guiding principles that we want to increase voter engagement and turnout, we want to have better relationship and better prepared council people, and engagement with the customer, which is the citizen. So if we keep those in mind, I think that can help us identify, do we agree with those top 3 principles? Could we go with our criteria? Should we go with that? And beyond that, what is important? So looking at this screen, thank you, Lauren, for bringing this up. Can everyone see that?
Did you make it bigger? Bigger? 60-year-old eyes here. Thank you.
So I can read it. Or Lauren, would you like to read it? You've got such a lovely voice.
Sure. So the first 3 are of highest importance. First, you would consider districts must have substantially equal population. This is required. Second, districts should be reasonably. Reasonably compact. That's strongly recommended. Thirdly, district boundaries may follow neighborhood boundaries or the boundaries of areas containing residents sharing similar interests. Then of the second order of importance, districts should have relatively even partisan balance, and I can add the rest of that sentence. District boundaries may follow precinct boundaries. District boundaries may be drawn considering the race of district residents as long as race is not the predominant motivating factor. Districts most likely to be impacted by future annexations may be smaller to minimize impact of future annexations on future redistricting. As Patrick said, I don't know if you want to keep this. And then lastly, district boundaries may be drawn to avoid contests between incumbents.
I like that, and I would support it. I just have one friendly amendment in that first bullet under the importance of the second order, and this piggybacks on what Patrick was saying earlier. I don't know that we can have each district have a relatively even partisan balance. I just don't know if that's logistically feasible. And that's why I was just saying that overall it would be a partisan balance overall in the council. Maybe there's a way to word it that ideally they'd have a partisan balance in each district, But if not, we would want the overall partisan balance. Does that make sense?
I didn't follow that.
So I was just, again, I was just kind of piggybacking on what Patrick said. I think there are certain wedges of the city where you're more likely to have Republicans voting or you're more likely to have Democrats voting. And I don't know how we could make a precinct, how we can make a district in every part of the city that keeps the neighborhoods, that's compact and keeps the neighborhoods together and keeps the precincts together, but also allows for competitive races in each of those districts. I don't know if that's logistically possible. I think if you keep the residents and the precincts together, there's going to be some areas where there are a lot of neighborhoods and precincts that all vote Republican or that all vote or mostly vote Republican or mostly vote Democrat. So I don't know that you can make each district a competitive race. So that's why I was suggesting that we have it, that be part of it if possible, but that overall the overarching goal is to keep the council politically balanced.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure the best way to word that, but that would be the overall goal is to have have there be an equal number of seats that tend to lean Democrat, tend to lean Republican, or that tend to be a toss-up. And if possible, as a secondary, if possible, that each of those districts be competitive.
I don't know if you can draw it to make it where the council will be evenly balanced. Because is that then when you get into the gerrymandering thing? You're drawing the district so that the that the makeup of the council is a certain way.
Yeah, I don't know enough to know what's possible. I think I would just support it as an importance of the second order, just like we had it in 2000.
Well,
Peter, are you saying that it should be kind of half and half, or sort of half and half between two parties, or
Yes.
that the participation on the council should represent the balance of political parties in the city?
I was saying, going back to the 2000 criteria, if I read that correctly, Lauren, I don't mean to keep picking on you, but do you still have that? Yeah, so district boundaries may be drawn to create or maintain balance between major political parties.
But Patrick, you're saying maintain political parties in terms of the makeup of the council. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what we're saying.
What you're saying, Patrick?
Are you meaning me or Peter?
Oh, Peter, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Peter, so Peter, it sounds like I hear you saying that. Are you referring that to the makeup, the balance between major political parties in terms of the makeup of the council or the makeup of the district?
I'd love to have it be the makeup of the district, but I don't know if that's feasible. So that's why I was saying the makeup of the council. So again, these are recommendations. What I would love to recommend is that, if possible, draw it in a way that it's competitive within each district. That would be ideal. But the secondary part would, if that's not ideal, because there's just too many neighborhoods or precincts that are compact that tend to vote one way or the other. So if we can't make it competitive in each district, that we we create or maintain a balance between the major political parties.
On the council?
Yes.
And then to me, that means you're drawing the districts to determine the outcome of the council. And to me, that's my understanding, the way I interpret gerrymandering. That's what they did with gerrymandering, to make sure that the certain political party held a seat within the district. Now, I think if you're drawing the district so that the district is competitive among the parties, then it's whoever wins in that competition. But to make it where it's making it where the boundary that it will be making sure there's a boundary or balance on the council. Seems like to me that's the whole thing of gerrymandering, is making sure that the district is represented by a particular party or group, particular party. I don't know, am I kind of misinterpreting that, Patrick? You're the legalese.
Okay. I wanted to make sure that the right Patrick is speaking now. No, it's interesting listening to the conversation. And this really gets into where being cognizant of partisan balance plays in. When you're talking about real gerrymandering, that's when you start off with, all right, if we've got 13 representatives to Congress, and I want 9 of them to be a particular party, then I start drawing my districts with that in mind. And by having this issue of political parties in your second order, that sort of negates that idea of the classic gerrymandering, to where now it is after you've done the equal population or relatively equal population. And then you're talking about now the shapes of the districts being relatively compact. Then at that point in time, I think is when it sort of plugs in. And if we can recognize and try to create some political balance in these districts, I think that's where that comes into play. And there may be areas, again, I'm probably the latest to Charlotte, but there may be some areas where once you do those first couple of things, getting the population balance and the compact shape of the district, there's nothing left to do. I mean, that side of town or that area of town is already, 80% of one party or what have you. So there may not be a whole bunch that you can do, but there may be areas after you get through those first areas of focus. And keep in mind, when you start doing the districts, it's not like you're going to start from scratch. You're really going to be looking at where the 7 districts are right now and kind of building off of those, in terms of where to flip and which districts need to, give more to another district. And you really start to build out the 2021 districts based on the 7 districts that you have right now. So you can spend a lot of time talking about this, but I think it's going to flush itself out, particularly when you put it in the second order of what realistically you can do after getting that balance and the compactness of your districts, to then keep in mind political parties and balance, and that may be the thing that has you flipping a couple of precincts here or there to keep a couple of precincts fairly balanced and create that opportunity. Again, just don't know what the numbers are going to be, but there are going to be some districts that's just, if somebody in a different party is going to have to win, you're just going to have to do it the old fashioned way, which is to get people to vote for you as opposed to voting for a particular party.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Does anybody have any other thoughts about or comments about this? Strongly, one way or the other?
This is Liz, and I apologize. I've been on and off, so I haven't made a comment, but I agree with
Liz. Okay.
Tough one, yeah. So I'm sorry.
Okay, Liz.
Okay, Liz, that's great. I will follow up with you.
And I'm listening to half, and I so apologize, but I'm on.
Ceci, did you want to say something?
I couldn't hear what she said.
Ceci, did you want to say something?
I have a question for Patrick. After we make the recommendation, who has the final decision, the state legislature or the city council?
On redistricting, it's city council.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's local.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Can Liz repeat what she said? I didn't hear what she said.
I said I would apologize. I've been on and off trying to be on the call, and I apologize that I haven't been participating. That's all. I was going to get back with Amy.
Okie doke. So in looking what Lauren has typed up before us, is there anyone that disagrees with this as a criteria for making recommendations to change the district? So there's no disagreement?
I like the language that she has on there now.
But I like that language ideally, but I think it goes back to what Patrick was saying. Wait, let me just clarify. Is that saying that each district should have the relatively even partisan balance? Because if so, that's where I think it's not logistically possible to achieve the first order and still be able to do that with the second order.
I wonder, can you add on there when possible?
Yeah, right up front.
When possible.
Yeah, I agree. That makes sense.
Uh-huh.
And then maybe put a second part of that, maybe put a second sentence that goes back to the PDF you were showing earlier.
Should have
Goodness.
Yep, that's the one.
Include the whole sentence.
Yeah, the district boundaries may be drawn to create, maintain balance.
I think we need to vote on that because I'm not comfortable with that. And see what the whole committee wants to do.
What, Janice, so you want to vote on what Lauren just typed out about the districts?
The 2001 sentence, I'm not comfortable with that sentence. What she had on there before, I'm comfortable with, but you know, I'm only one vote. And so.
And just for clarity, and I'm happy if we put it to a vote, but Janice, I would love if we could have just that first bullet the way it was originally written here. But to go with what Patrick said, I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if we can achieve the first order and still have each district be competitive.
Well,
Am I stating what you were saying before? Am I stating that accurately?
Yes.
Right. Well,
That's my only point.
what I heard Patrick say too is that when the first order of things are done, it may be impossible to do some of this. So that's why when possible, adding when possible, the district relatively even partisan balance. I'm comfortable with it ending right there with that period.
And just to note, since neighborhood boundaries are above precinct boundaries, you're going to meet, with this criteria, you're going to meet neighborhood boundaries requirements before you meet precinct boundaries. So that's sort of how the order will go. So there's also like precinct boundaries are going to conflict with neighborhood boundaries, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So Janice, are you more comfortable with this?
But I was saying I'm comfortable with the sentence ending with the first, when possible, districts should be relatively even partisan. Women, when possible, districts should have relatively even partisan balance. I'm comfortable ending that bullet there. And I knowing that the process of whoever's doing this, you know, they're going to be juggling all kinds of all these things to make this happen, you know. So you know, it's just it's factors that may be considered.
Yeah, to keep in mind, we're just making a recommendation. City Council is going to take this, and from what I saw, looking at their recent meeting, is they're probably going to build another committee just on this question and really dive into it.
Yes, I understand that. I'm just saying I'm comfortable ending it with that period. At that period.
The first sentence just says what the goal is. The second sentence is how to reach that goal. So I'm not uncomfortable with the way it is now. I mean, you have to reach the goal somehow. So what are you going to do, you know, to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mimi. I feel like that second sentence is just kind of expanding on what the first sentence says. I mean, that next group is going to be responsible for interpreting what we've written here. So that may give them some more information about what we were thinking.
So not to beat this to death. So, I mean, why couldn't it just be, when possible, districts should have relatively even partisan balance between major political parties?
Well, I think that extra sentence, should it be helpful, if we would get really unbalanced one way or the other, it gives an opportunity for the underdogs or the unbalanced party to have an opportunity.
Well, it's almost like it's being restated. This second sentence, it's almost like it's saying the same thing.
I think it clarifies it a little more.
Well, like I said, I'm only one vote. I'm just sharing what I'm.
Well, Janice, we appreciate your thoughts for sure. But no, we need to move along. So other than Janice, is everybody comfortable with moving forward with this as a criteria?
Yes.
Okie doke.
Can we hear from everybody, please?
Yeah, can we?
Yes.
On that, who's on the call? So we got yes to move forward with this criteria. Thank you, Lauren, for typing it up so fast. Pete?
I vote yes the way it's written.
Okay. Sam?
Yes.
Eleanor?
Yes.
Okay. Kristen?
Yes.
Okie doke. Is Christy Long on? Liz Weiner? Okay.
There.
Okay, so is this a yes, you're comfortable with moving forward with what's in front on our screen?
Yes, please. I'm looking right at it.
Awesome, thank you.
And hi, this is Christy Long. I'm sorry I could not get off of mute fast enough. The answer is yes.
All right, thank you, Christy. And then Patrick.
And I'm agreeing with that.
Yes, I got you. I'm looking for Brandon. I'm sorry, Brandon.
No worries. As written, yes.
Okay, good. Then we're good.
Wendy, can you pull up the PowerPoint again? Thank you.
Okie doke.
Let's see. I'm just going to get the PowerPoint pulled up really quickly. We're going to run through the results of the survey. And if we can't, then I will share my screen. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. WebEx. Sorry for the delay. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Wendy. Okay, so we talked about district criteria. Okay, survey results. So we had 600. First of all, I just want to thank everyone in communications, Wendy, Tom Davidson, Kim Brown. They're the ones who really put this together and got it out to all of the platforms. Really thankful. Also want to thank Lauren Rubalcaba, the senior policy analyst who's also on the call, for really generating all of the results for the survey and putting it into the report that you guys received in your packet. So for the survey, we received 681 total responses, 179 individual comments. The survey was distributed on the committee's webpage, the city's homepage, the city's social media platforms, and via email blast. The email blasts were sent to the city's boards and commissions, the city's neighborhood organization contact list, developers who often work in the city with the city, and also to city employees. Looking at demographics, we did make these optional just to encourage as much feedback as we could possibly get. Take that into consideration as you're looking at these results. For age, we had 477 respondents. If you look at this pie chart, sorry, it's all in green. I should have changed that. But we did, you can see that we received a fairly decent representation of all age groups for the people who responded. We only received like, I think 8% of responses from people who are of the ages 18 to 25. That's one thing to take into consideration. For gender, it was about half and half. We had 439 responses. For ethnicity, 387 out of the 681 responded to the ethnicity question. 57% were white. About 20% were Black or African American or other. And one thing to note on this, we only had we had 11 who indicated that they were Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish, and that's only about 3% of this 387. And that's, I would say, the Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish population make up about 13% of Charlotte. If we look at zip codes, we had 288 respondents on zip code. This 28205 is East Charlotte. That also makes up the plaza. We also received significant response from 28269. That's North Charlotte, west of I-77. And then this 28269 is east of I-77. Then we received also responses from 28216, which is North Charlotte as well. If we're looking at these zip codes, one thing to take into consideration is there aren't many people responding, or at least who responded to this question, from West Charlotte, so District 3. For affiliation, we asked the question affiliation. We had 261 responses on affiliation, but people chose more than one. 194 people indicated that they were Charlotte residents. 67 indicated that they belonged to community organizations within Charlotte. 65 indicated that they belonged to neighborhood associations within Charlotte. 27 from the City of Charlotte's boards and commissions, 14 from the Charlotte development community, and 42 City of Charlotte employees. Okay, now we'll get into the results. We tried to ask the questions directly based on what your charge is as a committee. For how long should a term of office be for the mayor? 60% of respondents replied that it should be 4 years. 40% said 2 years. We received 625 responses on this question. Now, looking at council members, 54% of the responses indicated that their term should be 2 years. 46 respondents said 4 years. If we look at salaries for council members, should council member salaries be increased, remain similar, or be less? We received 607 responses. 42% said they should increase. 45% said the salaries for council members should remain similar, and 13% said they should be less. Now we look at the salary for the mayor. 52% of the 610 respondents said that the salary for the mayor should increase. 40% said that it should be similar, and 8% said it should be less. So looking at election methods, should our elections in Charlotte be partisan or nonpartisan? 55% said that they should be partisan, and 45% said that they should be nonpartisan. The city of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County currently do have partisan elections. And then should city council and the mayor have staggered elections? Currently, they do not. 70% of the respondents out of 599 responses said that they should have staggered elections, and 30% indicated that they should not. And then looking at representation, which is what you guys are going to talk about tonight, these responses could be interpreted in a few different ways, but 24% of the respondents, 589 responses on this question, said that Charlotte should increase to add 1 district seat. 15% said that representation should be increased to add 1 at-large seat. 27% said the at-large seats should be reduced and we should add a district seat. 7% said reduce the district seats and increase the at-large seats. And then 29% said keep the representation the same. And if you look, I would say over 60% indicate in some form or fashion that representation should be increased, and over 50 lean towards adding 1 district seat. And then we can leave this, and just based on the comments, I apologize, some of those comments were cut off. I can resave those comments to the OneDrive. Again, 179 individual comments. If we're looking at a summary of those comments, I felt like I was reading a lot of a desire to increase mayor salaries and then council salaries, but also an interest in adding district representation. And also, while this isn't necessary, while this requires local legislation, there were also many comments in regards to term limits. Are there any questions on the survey before you guys start talking about representation?
Lauren, this is Pete. I just want to, for whatever we discuss moving forward, I really appreciate all the work that you and the team did to draft the survey, and also everything the communication team did to promote the survey and get as many responses as we did. My only concern is no matter what question we're looking at, as you mentioned, the city is 13% Latino, and only 3% of Latinos were represented in the survey, and there's very little representation from West Charlotte. So again, I appreciate all the effort that was done on this, but I don't know how much stock we can put in it because I don't know about the scientific validity.
Yeah, I second that. That was part of my my concern too. Again, not taking away from the hard work. I mean, this at least give us some perspective. When I'm looking at where all the survey was sent to, and only 681 responded, and then I'm looking at the zip codes. I'm a little bothered by that because to Peter's point, I'm looking at just within my zip code. And I know there are way more than a zip code that they're involved and engaging civically, and want to bring up these issues when we have community meetings. So I don't know to what extent that we follow the results of some of these. I know we all have our own thoughts on some of the specific questions and issues. So I think we should still move forward with that. As far as taking the validity of this survey, I'm just a little bit hesitant on that, considering only 681 people responded, and looking at where all the survey was sent to. So that doesn't take away from all of the hard work that has been done, Lauren. I saw your hard work. We give you a hard time, and you went back and did more changes in the survey for us. So I'm not taking that away, and I'm not taking it away from communication and none of that, but I'm just concerned that the number that participated doesn't really reflect the community at large. And I just don't know if we want to really make our decisions based on that alone, because some people in certain zip codes may feel left out. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Sam. I think that, you know, we're representing the city and we're trying to do the best. And Lauren, I think we got a pretty good turnout, but it's always about, it's like voter engagement, you know, trying to get people engaged. And, you know, we've been chosen to make decisions, and this survey was used as, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Patrick, but really because we're in this world of Zoom, we're not able to have open meetings. So we tried to reach as many people as we could on top of the social media and that sort of thing. So I think we can move forward as a committee to hopefully represent those people that weren't able to respond or didn't respond for whatever reason, based on our own experience and everything we've learned at this point. So Patrick, do you have any thought on that?
No, agreed. I think the main value of the survey is that we can say we gave the community an opportunity to participate, those that chose to do that. And you have this information, but no, it's not binding at all. But it's interesting information as you went through everything, and then you get some survey results of what other folks may be thinking. But it's certainly not, it wasn't designed to necessarily impact your decisions, or now, you know, based on what you saw in the survey, you've got to change a straw vote into something else. That's not it at all. But again, just the difficulty of getting community participation in the situation that we're in right now, I think really mandated the need to at least have a survey, in part to say you gave people an opportunity to chime in, and this is what those that chose to chime in said.
Great, thank you. Did someone else want to speak up? I thought I heard someone. Okay, so we should probably move forward with, hopefully everyone's given some thought. We need to decide on our district conversation before we do the straw votes. So has anyone given a thought to, you know, we want smaller districts. We see where the districts have the most growth. Does it make sense to keep it the way it is and add a district rep? Does it make sense to, I mean, keep it the way it is and lower the amount of at-large councilmen or council people, and get another district rep? Or do we want to, you know, add another district rep and make it 13? So does anyone want to have some conversation about that? Ceci, Pete?
Yeah, I was just going to say that's just something that, Amy, you were kind enough to share in the email. A thought that I had is, I think we all, based on the conversation earlier, agree that the city needs smaller districts, so there's fewer residents that each council member represents. And by the same token, I would hate to give up an at-large seat from somebody who oversees the good of the entire city and not just a specific area of town. So that was my proposal. I would move that we add one seat who's a district rep, so we'd have 8 district representatives on the city council. We'd still have 4 at large, and that would mean the mayor would get a vote. It would give the mayor a little more power, but I think the upside of that 8th district rep without taking away an at-large seat is worth it.
Do you think, do you think that adding just one more district is going to be enough according to the growth of the city? And looking at 10 years from now, do we need to add 2 districts?
I'd love to do that, but the state law prohibits us from adding more than 13 total.
Right. Then we cut 1 at large. Mhm.
Does anybody else have a proposal other than these two?
Yeah, this is Sam. I support the getting rid of one of their large and making 2 district seats, just so to kind of lower the number of people in the district. So I support 2 district seats in whatever the number of the 3 are large proposal.
Yeah.
Liz, were you trying to say something?
No, I agree with what Sam just said. That's what I was going to say.
This is Eleanor. I think I agree. I mean, I think definitely I'm willing to give up one of the large at large for another district.
So give up one for district.
For an addition, I think an additional district. I wish we weren't limited to having the number that we're having, but because I really think we need more district representatives. But I think within the framework that we are given, that's our best option.
Ceci, did you want to say something?
No, I really agree with the majority of the propositions from the other members. And I believe will be a little bit more stable because the growth in the city is just impacting tremendously, not just among the city, the population, transportation, and we need to be prepared for years from now. And having 2 or districts and cutting 1 at large probably will be sufficient for the other 3 at large members to look overall the city. So we don't need 4 at large. We might need more district representatives.
Okay, so we've got give up 1 at-large seat for a district seat. And then, Ceci, you're saying give up 1 at-large for 1 district and add district, Rep?
2 district.
So we'd get to 13. Are you saying we'd get to 13?
Yes, having the 13, yeah.
Gotcha, okay. Okay, so would anybody else like to offer up a suggestion other than what's already been given?
I just want to make one point that Patrick made last time, and he can add to this, is currently the mayor has veto power. If city council consists of 12 members, that would take away the mayor's veto power. And it would also, like Patrick had stated before, it'll also change sort of the political balance, having the mayor make additional votes to break a tie. Just something to consider.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren, are you saying that she does have the power now, or she doesn't?
She does have veto power now.
So the argument would be that she does have veto power, which is good because she can break a tie, just like, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, okay. And that's why you're saying she has veto power, the fact that she could break the tie? Is that the only one that has veto power?
Well, veto power and breaking a tie are completely different things. Veto power is if there's a decision and she doesn't go along with it, she can veto what was done. Can she change a decision of city council if a majority makes that decision?
She can veto that decision now. Impact that.
Does changing the number of representatives change that power? Because I don't want to remove any more power. It's already a weak mayor system, so I don't want to remove any more power from her or from that position.
Is Patrick on here just for a legal?
I am. I'm sorry, I needed to step away. So typically, if she's going to be able to vote, most mayors don't have veto power if they're voting. Usually, the ones that have veto power are the ones that don't vote. But they are reserved the right to veto, which is where she is now, where she does not vote, but she does have veto power, regardless of what the council actually does.
And Patrick, if it goes to 13, where's I guess an even number,
yeah, then
would that affect her ability to have the veto power?
I'd have to look at that. Usually when, in just about every case in which the mayor has a vote, the mayor does not have veto power. Basically, they're one vote like everybody else. And when they're actively voting, then that's the exercise of their vote. And I don't know that I've seen a situation where a mayor can vote and then be on the losing side and then basically say, well, I win and veto it. So usually you have one or the other. I haven't seen situations where the mayor can both vote and then lose and then decide that he or she wins simply by vetoing it. That would seem a little odd. It may exist somewhere, but for the most part, those that have the veto power are those that don't actually vote on the items.
Has there ever been a time when the mayor of Charlotte actually has vetoed a legitimate vote by the city council?
Not this mayor, but my understanding is that it did occur possibly with Mayor Fox and Mayor McCrory.
So Patrick, I'm a little confused now. So if we go to 13, because right now we are at 11 plus the mayor makes that 12, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So if we go to 13, she will ultimately it will be 6 and 6. Let's just say, to make it simple, 6 and 6. She will always be that ultimate decision maker as far as if they were voting and they had a 6-6 tie.
Yeah, right. You would have her
veto power at that point because she will have to make a decision if they go to 6 and 6. I'm just a little confused.
Now that's a really good question, and actually I'd like to be able to follow up with you on it because this mayor hasn't used that veto power. I'm not exactly sure, and I may be able to have an answer for you in about 5 minutes. In terms of if the mayor has to break a tie, then it's going to go in the direction that the mayor wanted it to go anyway. So I don't know that there's a need then for the veto power to come into play if she's already voted to break the tie. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that's why I was getting a little caught up, a little bit confused on. It's thinking about it from that perspective. If she's breaking the tie, that's technically her having the veto power. But I think Mimi made a good point where being able to make the final decision of breaking a tie and actually vetoing something like a bill or whatever. Make it simple. To me, it sounds like it's two different things. So I was trying to get the clarification on Patrick.
Yeah, I think that, there's no need for her to veto it if she's breaking a tie because her vote basically takes the motion where she wanted it to go. But yeah, she would retain her veto power, with the exception of those actions in which she's voting.
I have a question, Patrick. Does the number have to be 13? Can it be 14 total?
It cannot be 14. It cannot be 14.
No?
You can have the issue is you're capped at 12 council members. So you can have the only way to get to there's no way to get to 14 if you've got a cap of council members at 12. Okay. So basically, the largest that a local government or a municipal government board could be under the current law is 13. 12 council members plus a mayor.
The mayor. Okay, thank you.
So I guess a good question for us is, do we think it's important that the Charlotte mayor has the veto power? Or is it important that she or he is just has the ability to vote over the body? So does anybody have any comments about that or thoughts?
Yeah.
But break a tie, when you say vote, to break a tie or to vote in all decisions?
Excuse me, Mimi, I'm sorry. Can you go ahead?
When you're talking about voting, are you talking about voting to break a tie the way it is now? Or are you talking about having a vote in day-to-day decision making?
I'm talking about the veto. Should a mayor, is it important for us that a mayor has a veto power, but doesn't do as much voting on issues that are the big issues? If she's vetoing, our mayor has not done it, but for an example, I can't think of a recent one. I don't know if you can, Lauren, or Patrick can, or maybe Ceci, you remember. But what would have been something that Mayor Fox would have vetoed?
So just to clarify really quickly, right now, the mayor, say one council member doesn't show up, the mayor can vote to break a tie. She can also veto any action taken by council right now.
Go ahead, sorry.
During this discussion, I'm comfortable with the position of the mayor continuing to have the veto power that she has right now, and I think others have stated that they were recommending the 8-3. I feel good with increasing the districts to 8 and reducing the at large down to 3, and that will keep us at 11, if I'm adding correctly.
So
thank you, Janice. Pete?
Lauren and Patrick, I just want to clarify the veto. So in theory, if all 7 district members and all 4 at-large members unanimously voted on something, and the mayor could unilaterally say no and veto it?
Correct.
And I don't know that I'm comfortable with that, no matter what we're doing with the makeup of the council.
Can they then pass it over her veto?
I knew that was going to be the next question. I will find out for you. Let me just pull it up.
And Patrick, while you're doing that, I guess it can be a Patrick or Lauren question. This is not something that we typically see. Like, it's not something that happens, maybe it happened once every 10 years or every 5 years or something like that, right? It's not something that happens every year for every rezoning issue or every transportation issue or whatever, right? Correct?
I would agree. Like I said, this mayor has not used that veto power, and I've not heard that even the mayors that have used it often. It's probably something that should be done rarely, given the structure of the council as it is, and that the charter is basically vesting the decision making to the council members. I'm really only plugging the mayor in on the decision making, the actual voting piece, when he or she is breaking a tie, or in the cases where they need to veto. But I don't think it happens very often. But theoretically it could. What I need to find out is what happens if there is a veto. What happens after that?
Yeah, because to Peter's point, that is concerning that or 11 council members can vote on something and they can all agree to it, whether they're Republican or Democrat or nonpartisan. And then she can ultimately come in and say, you know what, I want it this way. Right. And pretty much, well, I prefer for her just to be a voting member in that case, where she's not making that heavy type of decision like that. So.
Well, I agree with Peter too. I'm kind of shocked. I hadn't heard that before. But to me, that seems to go from a weak mayor system to an absolute mayor system. If she can decide ahead of time, or whoever's the mayor, what they want, and then that will happen.
It can be overturned.
It can be overturned?
Yeah, it can be overturned. I'm just not, I want to just get confirmed what the
I'm trying to find out what that process is here.
I think at least if half of the council members, but we'll wait for.
Patrick, I'm just curious. You just have a book of rules sitting next to you that you just tap into?
It's more of an iPad of rules, but yes.
We are very lucky to have Patrick.
Yes, indeed.
Here, here.
So in the charter, and I'll just read it because I'm still not quite getting the clear answer. The mayor may veto any action adopted by the city council. The veto must be exercised at the meeting in which the action was taken. An action vetoed by the mayor shall automatically be on the agenda for the next regular or special meeting of council, but shall not become effective unless it was readopted by council with at least 7 members voting in the affirmative. That still doesn't make sense to me.
Seven members vote yes, she vetoes. There's another meeting, and 7 of them have to vote no to support the veto.
I think that's the case. It just doesn't read very well to me.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me, that when they go to that next meeting, 7 members can override her veto. That's what it sounds like to me initially.
Right.
Sorry for adding more confusion. I just wanted to point out that maybe making an even council would take that away.
So my only thought as Patrick looks it up, and I'm glad that we're getting the clarification, Lauren, is that if this is something that's very rarely used over the last 20 years, I don't know how much weight we should give it now. And I think I'd be more in favor of increasing the size of council to increase the number of district representatives than preserving something that's been only used a handful of times in 20 years. And the mayor would still have a vote.
Thanks, Pete. Well, everybody's, or while Patrick's looking this up, does anybody have any other thoughts on that? What Pete said?
Agree with Pete.
I agree with Lauren. If we need to have an even, if we have 12, then she's going to have to use the veto. Having an odd number of city councilmen will be probably a lot easier, for all of them to make the decision without using the mayor, I don't know. I may be wrong.
Well, I think what we're is, Patrick, you ready?
Yeah, I think so. I think I have made it through this. So the item, if the mayor vetoes an item, it automatically shows up on the next council meeting, and his or her veto will become effective at that meeting unless 7 council members basically vote to override the mayor's veto. That's how that would play out. So it comes back on for theoretical reconsideration by the council. and absent a vote of 7 to basically vote yes on that item, or vote whatever it is that they're going to vote on that item, the veto would then become effective. So essentially 7 can override the mayor's veto.
Thank you.
And that would really address the issue, just the concept of an 11-0 vote and the mayor saying, no, I don't feel like doing that. So they just, just keep dropping vetoes on and on. It would just add another week or 2 to that particular item passing, if you've got numbers like that.
That makes sense. Thank you.
So again, we're back to the question, if we were to make a recommendation to the council, is it important for our mayor to have that veto power? And therefore, do we need to keep the council the same size, but maybe change the makeup? Or is it so important that because Charlotte's growing so much that we add another district rep? So I'd like to, if we could kind of focus on that, I think we can move forward on this. So
if you look at the survey, 51%, something like that, wanted more district seats, some by reducing at large and some by adding. So we know probably from the beginning we have to have more district seats in some way or other.
So perhaps we move to, we either do, so we move to 8 district reps and 3 at large, which would keep us at 11. Maybe we vote on that versus adding a district rep. So we get to the total of 13.
Would you repeat that, Amy, please?
Yes, see. So so if we were to keep if we want to keep the number at 12 with the mayor, then we have the option, I'm just proposing this for discussion on where we would take away a district rep, an at-large rep. So we have 8 districts and 3 at large instead of 7 districts with 4. So that's an option to keep it at 12. Or we keep it the way it is and we add a district rep to get us to 13. So I'm just proposing that would be something we would vote on unless we want to add another thought.
I would support taking away an at-large seat and giving it to a district.
Pete, did you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to move that we add a district rep, and that would allow the mayor to vote, and it would, and so we'd have 13. That was what I'd move.
Okay. So, okay, Sam, you wanted to say something?
Oh no.
Yeah, I was opposite side. I was thinking taking a large, 2 district seats that we would still end up with 13. 12, and then the mayor would be the 13th one who can break the vote. So I was thinking add a district seat, take away an large seat, and make another district seat. So that'll be 2 district seats and then 3 at large. I don't know if that number adds up right. I'm doing it in my head, but I don't know if it adds up.
No, it's just me.
So 9 districts, 3 at large, and the mayor.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. Yes.
Okay.
9 districts.
There's background noise. If someone can mute if they're not talking, please. Okay, so that gives us 3 options. 2 for getting to 13 and 1 for keeping it the same. So Patrick, how do you propose we vote on this?
That's a good question. Since you've got 3 Why don't we take an initial straw poll on the 3?
Okay.
And just hit them one at a time? Lauren, does that make sense?
So would we?
Yeah.
My only thought, I'm happy to do that, but my only thought is how would we indicate, here's my first choice, here's my second choice?
Yeah.
That's the only reason I don't want to do a thumbs up, thumbs down.
Sure.
I don't know if it makes sense to make one motion and have people vote up or down and then do a second motion if it fails.
Should we maybe start with, should we stick with 12 or should we stick with 13? You know what I mean? Like, is the number going to be capped at 11 or should we go to 12? And then we could filter down to the levels of district level versus at large.
It's a good idea.
I like that. Thank you. Okay, so let's start with that. So who is in favor of keeping the city council at 12, keeping the way it is, but potentially changing the makeup? So first person I see is
Amy, I want to be clear. When you say city council's at 11 right now.
Right. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the mayor. So,
I just want to make sure everyone understands. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So keeping it 11 city council people for a total of 12. That includes the mayor. So who is in favor of that? So let's start with Pete.
I would vote against keeping it at a total of 12.
Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry, it's Liz. I just want to ask, I thought we were going to go 8 and 3, you just said, which I thought was a good idea. You said keeping it 8 and then 3, that's 12. The mayor is the 12th, so 8 and 2.
Right. So Liz, what we're doing right now, just because we have 3 things to vote on.
Oh, sorry. I'm trying to follow. Okay.
We're trying to figure out, do we want to keep it a total of 12 or move to 13?
Okay.
So that's what we're kind of using as a vote. Straw vote. So, okay.
The difference, though, is going to be would the mayor vote? Is that right? Basically.
Right. Mimi, but right now we're trying to, Lauren suggested we vote just who's willing to say, okay, we'll keep it the same, but change the makeup, keep it a total of 12 on council, including the mayor, or are we going to add a district rep to make it 13? So right now we're trying to figure out that question. Who is in favor of keeping it at 12? So I got Pete's straw vote. What about Ceci?
Yes, that would be 9 districts, 2 at large, and the mayor, correct?
We're still talking about, is it going to move to 12 or 13? And then we're going to drill down to that.
Yeah, okay, 12.
So you're a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Kristen?
I vote no on the 12.
So yes for 12?
No for 12.
No. Eleanor?
I vote for moving to 12.
Staying at 12?
All right.
Okay, Janice?
Could everyone mute their phone? It's really hard to hear, please.
Okay, Janice?
Keeping it at 12. 12 total.
Okie doke. Kristen? Mimi?
Keep it at 12.
Okay. Pete? Sam?
I vote no.
Okay. Brandon?
I am against keeping it at 12.
So that's a no. Okay. And Christy?
I am in favor of keeping it at 12.
Okie doke. All righty.
I think just Liz.
Yeah, Liz.
Amy.
Yes, I'd like to Keep it at 12 plus the mayor? I'm sorry to be thick. I just want to make sure. Is that correct?
12 includes the mayor.
Okay, I cut that one.
So we basically, we're just saying, would we want the total body to be a number of 12 and keep it, but change them? We'll talk about the makeup, or do we want to cap it at 13?
I got it. Okay, no, I want to keep it at 12, but change the makeup like we just talked about. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have a majority for keeping it at 12. So moving forward on that.
Amy, what was the total numbers out of curiosity?
So we had Pete, Sam, and Brandon.
No, I'm just talking about the total number of the votes. How many was
how
many was against?
It was 6 to keep it at 12 and 4 to move to 13 without Amy's vote.
My vote would be to keep it at 12.
So that means it would have been 7 to keep it at 12 and then 4 to move to 13.
Thank you.
All righty. So now we need to decide, thank you, Lauren. We need to decide, do we want to move to give up a at-large seat to create an extra district seat, which would give us 8 districts and 3 at large? Or do we want to move to adding 2 districts, I'm sorry, to then have 1 at large? Does that sound like a viable question?
1 at large?
I think it would be 2 at large if we go to add 2 district seats, 2 at large. Because it's 4 currently, I think.
9 districts and 2 at large, right, Sam? Is that what you were saying?
Yes, that's correct.
9 districts, 2 at large. So then,
well, that takes it to 13 then, doesn't it?
well, we've got 9 plus 2.
Oh, no, that's 12. Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the vote would be, do we want 8 to move to 8 districts from 7 and move from 4 at large to 3? Or do we want to have 9 districts and 2 at large? So that's what we're gonna vote on next. So let's start with 8, moving to 8 districts and 3 at large. That means we'd be giving up a seat and gaining a district seat. So who is for that?
Can I vote? This is Liz, so I don't forget. Yeah, I vote yes, and I like that.
Okay. Thanks, Liz. Okay, Ceci.
Yes, 8 district, 3 at large.
Okay. Eleanor.
All right. Sorry, I've got.
It's okay.
Not come home yet. We're voting on having 3 at large and
8 districts.
8 districts.
So we lose 1 at large and gain a district.
Okay. So that's the only thing. We're not going to vote on having 9 and 2 at large.
We are 9 and 2.
Okay. We are going to vote on that next.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would vote yes on this and yes on the other. So.
Okay, Janice. 8-3.
8-3. Yes.
Okay, Kristen.
I vote yes for 8 district and 3 at large.
Okay, Mimi.
Vote yes for 8-3.
Okay. Pete.
Yes for 8-3.
Okay, Sam,
Yes for 8-3.
Brandon,
Yes.
for 8-3.
Yes. Yes for 8-3. Yes.
Okey-doke. And Christy, we're voting for 8-3. Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you. And then my vote would be yes as well. So that is unanimous for 8-3. So do we need to vote on the straw vote on the other one if we're unanimous? Unanimous? Lauren, what do you think?
I think if the committee is okay with it, I think the straw vote that you all just took is fine.
Yeah, it's unanimous. So, okay. All right. Patrick, do you want to say something?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, then I think we made a decision on that we can add for a recommendation for council. Anybody have any comments about that? Thoughts? Great. Thank you. The only, yeah, okay, we have time. Can we add a little more time? Thank you all. I knew this would be a long meeting, so I apologize. I mean, I appreciate you hanging in just a little bit longer. So let's review our straw votes that we've made so far. So for our 4-year terms, that passed 8-3. And then we had 2-year term limits, or 2 term limits contingent on 4-year terms. That was 10-1. Referendum to move to a 4-year to move to 4-year terms. That was passed 7-4. Move to nonpartisan election method. That passed 6-5. Staggered terms contingent on 4-year terms. That passed 10-1. Should Charlotte mayor and city council receive an increase in compensation? Yes, we all agreed. That was unanimous. Should Charlotte mayor and city council salaries match Mecklenburg County Board of County Commissions compensation? And we voted unanimous for that. So does anybody have any changes or conversation they'd like to have about these straw votes based on anything that's changed in their thought process or something that's come up that you'd like to discuss?
I would like to, go ahead.
I ask this because this would be put into a package that we deliver to City Council as our recommendation. So it's real important we feel strongly about what we're going to present. Janice?
I would like to circle back to the move to nonpartisan election method. Yes. And just kind of talking to some, I guess some leaders in the community, in terms of, so if we move to nonpartisan elections, I know on the Democratic Party side, then basically the primary process would be to be eliminated, and then just the things that I guess and not understanding all of the details of what would need to take place, but it could present quite a complicated process for the Democratic Party to not have a primary process. And so I just think that I want folks to understand, at least have an idea that it would be pretty much a big process in the Democratic Party process, lead to some complications. Because the primary process would basically, from what I understand, and speaking with the county chair, that then they would have to pretty much stop. We would have to stop having a Democratic primary.
Thanks, Janice. Does anybody else have other comments about this topic? Moving from Charlotte from partisan elections to nonpartisan. Nope.
This is Brandon. I think Janice has a valid point. I guess I thought the whole purpose of like kind of moving to the nonpartisan would be to kind of go away from all of the party stuff. You know, so not discounting the issue that the Democratic Party might have or the Republican Party might have in the primary, but really going away from all of that.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
No, I'm comfortable with the framework of the straw vote. I think we talked about how turnout is typically higher in the general election, not the primary, which gives more people say. I think right now the independent voters are disenfranchised. And if you look at the reports from the National League of Cities, more than 75% of the cities do it this way, nonpartisan, including 22 of the 30 biggest. So, you know, and again, I can't remember who used the phrase, but that there's no Republican or Democratic way to pick up the garbage or fix potholes. And so I think that this nonpartisan election makes sense.
Thank you, Pete. Anybody else?
I think, I guess I'm probably beating a dead horse, but I'd have to say I agree. And I think that, especially when we look at the comparative cities and the number of people who do that, and I think Charlotte, it can sometimes be slow to move into the future. And I think it's time that, because I think we already are behind on this.
Thanks, Eleanor. Okay, so do we need to revote on this, or do we agree that we will keep it as is? Let's do a quick straw poll on that, and then we should be good to go. Okay, so should we revote on this? Nonpartisan versus Ceci?
Partisan.
Nonpartisan, Liz.
That was Liz?
Yep.
Okay. So, okay, Peter?
Nonpartisan.
Kristen? Kristen?
Nonpartisan, sorry, he's upset.
No problem. Hey, honey. Okay, Mimi?
Partisan.
Okay, Janice?
Partisan.
Eleanor?
Nonpartisan.
Okay. Sam?
Partisan.
Okay, Brandon?
Nonpartisan.
Okay, Christy? So, Christy, we're voting if we're going to revote, restart vote on the nonpartisan versus partisan decision. Christy? All right.
Partisan, I'm here. Partisan.
Okay, so you are going partisan? Christy, can you repeat that, please?
Partisan. She's partisan.
Partisan, okay. I don't think I'm... Okay, Ceci, did you want to say something? Your light's on. Okay. So, Lauren, did you?
I didn't catch Liz's vote. Was she?
Oh, Liz was nonpartisan.
Nonpartisan? Okay. So right now we're at 5 partisan, 5 nonpartisan.
Okay, so that includes, so my vote would be nonpartisan.
Okay. So 6 nonpartisan and 5 at partisan.
Okay, so we're the same. All right. Okay, so this is what we will present to council. We'll pull up a package. I think, Lauren, in your PowerPoint, you have, there you go, right there. And then the next one, next slide, or the previous one. Yeah, so this is what it'll look like, and anybody on the committee is welcome to help pull this together. I know we have a good writer on the committee too that might enjoy this, but ultimately we'll present this to council. I'm not sure, I don't think we'll do it in person. It'll probably be done via WebEx. So if anybody would like to join me, they're welcome to. If the council has any questions on this, we can chime in together. So any comments on this? Thoughts?
Do we know when this will be presented, Amy?
Yeah, so currently it's scheduled for the November 2nd City Council strategy session, which starts at 5 p.m. And currently on the city manager's memo, this item was first, and then the next, the Legacy Commission, which is also a mayor initiative, would report out after you all.
Hey, Lauren, would you be able to send us a reminder or a calendar like you guys have been going for, if possible?
Yeah, definitely.
So in my conversation with Lauren, she talked about having the packet ready to present to them ready by October 28th, right, Lauren?
Yeah, so ideally, if we could get it ready in 2 weeks, that would be great. And you guys can you can present to council in whatever form you so choose to do. And then you can report on it. You can provide a presentation. It's really up to you guys. Some options that we have, if you wanted to potentially submit your final recommendations to Dana Fenton, who's City of Charlotte's Intergovernmental Relations Manager, and have him submit a supplementary report on the impact of your recommendations to City Council, you can do that. And Dr. Suzanne Leland with UNCC's public policy program also said if you wanted to submit your recommendations, she could also provide a supplementary report. Again, this is all optional. One thing that Dr. Leland has, I had a conversation with her just at the courtesy of Council Member Watlington, and she did recommend that your recommendation, just like what Amy has done with the sort of outline, just to highlight what you all want out of each one of your recommendations.
So I think you're talking about the guiding principles. Yeah. Ultimately, at the end of the day, what do we want to better serve the city of Charlotte citizens?
Yeah, exactly.
Okie doke. All right. Eleanor, did you want to say something?
I was going to say, I'd be happy to be liaison with Dr. Leland if we want, if we want to move in that direction where we have the reports, I'm happy to are with Dana Fenton to get those letters of support, because I do think that and some implications, I think that would be important for City Council to hear.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, Eleanor, I'll put you down. I'll follow up with you all offline because I know we're almost out of our meeting time, and I'm going to keep everyone's schedule in mind. Does anybody have any closing thoughts, Janice?
Amy, I'll plan to be there on the 11th, on the 2nd.
The 2nd.
11/2.
Yeah. Great.
So, Amy, is this our final meeting, or we have another one? I'm a little confused with everything.
This is pretty much our final meeting. What we need to do now is pull a package together, a proposal that we're going to recommend to council. And their next strategy session, I believe, is November 2nd, where we are on the agenda, our committee is on the agenda to present everything we've talked about and put a straw vote towards. And they'll maybe ask questions based on past committees like ours, And then they'll ultimately have to decide if they're going to take our decisions and use them and put them to use. And what I heard watching their last session when this topic came up, again, they're looking at potentially setting up another committee just to dive into the whole district, the details of the district redistricting. And that would be later on.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Well, considering that it sounded like this may be the last group meeting, I wanted to just the opportunity to thank Lauren, who has really been with us through this whole ride and have really supported and helped us and provided us a wealth of information that have really swayed a lot of my decisions. So I just want to tell her thank you and the team, and also Patrick for being the legal mind and having all of those policies and rules and everything in his head. That's amazing to me. I can barely remember what I did yesterday. So just want to tell him thank you for that. And then you also, Amy, for your leadership in leading this group through all the tough conversations and none of the fun times when we agreed and things like that. So I just want to take this opportunity to do that just in case I can't do it again. Thank you.
Awesome.
I agree, Sam. I want to thank Lauren and Patrick, and I want to thank you too, Amy. We were supposed to meet in person in March, and then of course the pandemic hit, and we've had to do it virtually. So thank you for guiding us through this process when we never even had a chance to shake hands and meet.
And if I can say the same thing, it's an area, I know nothing. I came in knowing nothing, and I feel like the staff and everybody have just been so patient, and thank you. And I'm sorry I have not been a better committee member, but I do feel like we came to a good, hopeful conclusion. But thank you, Amy, and everyone on the committee for bearing with my back and forthness. So thank you.
I want to say the same. I'm just so thankful to be on the committee for the experience and to work with, the people of the caliber that I've seen on this committee. It's been I'm so thankful to all of you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure working with all of you. Thank you for your leadership, Amy, Lauren, and I know Ms. Rubalcaba, Patrick, everybody that helped and guide us throughout this event. Thank you very much, and to all the members. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the year.
I just want to ditto all of that too, and thank you too to the staff, Patrick, Lauren, and everyone, and Amy, your leadership, and also just a big thank you to Cindy for starting out. And Amy, do we have an update on how Cindy is doing?
She's hanging in there. I asked her, Robert passed away. Obviously, she's doing as well as can be imagined. I did tell her, I gave her an update that this was probably going to be our last meeting. And did she have any thoughts she wanted to share? And she pretty much agreed with what we voted on. So she'll be happy to know that.
Good.
Yeah. So thanks for asking. Well, y'all,
it's been a good experience.
Seeing you.
Everybody, take care.
Thanks,
Amy. Guys.
Really quick.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I feel really fortunate to have been a part of this, and I have learned so much, and it was so great getting to know you. So thank you, guys.
Thank you for everything, Lauren. You've been awesome. Okay. Bye-bye, y'all. Bye, Patrick.
Bye-bye.
Bye.